Welcome to the Atlanta Consortium Virtual College Fair. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many sessions happening, so please be sure to sign up for additional sessions. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at strivescan.com/Atlanta. And now I'd like to turn it over to our presenters.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Matt. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. All right. I'm hoping that that worked. It froze a little bit for me, so if you can't see, please let me know. So I am very excited that we are going to be able to chat with you today about College Visits 101. Please excuse me if at any point I get choppy, just let us know in the chat and Q&A. We are experiencing some weather right now, which is affecting my internet. So we are going to be spending our time together today talking about the different kinds of visits that are available to you at colleges, which ones might be best for you to take advantage of, and ways that you can make the most out of a college visit experience. Please, as we're going through, drop things into the Q&A as you have questions. We're going to leave plenty of time for us to answer your questions at the end of the presentation. So my name is Rachel West. I'm an Associate Director of Admission at Agnes Scott College, which is located in Decatur, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. And I am going to kick it over to my co-presenters. So Katie Beth, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure can. Thanks, Rachel. My name is Katie Beth Chisholm, and I am at Georgia Tech and the Assistant Director for Campus Visits. So get to host fabulous folks like y'all throughout the year, virtually right now, and hopefully in person soon over the summer.
Awesome. And I am Sonia Oveby. I am the Assistant Director of the Welcome Center at Georgia State University. So just down in downtown Atlanta. And I'll pass it over to Alex.
Thanks, Sonia. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex LeBlanc, and I am the Director of Regional Recruitment at SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. We were founded in Savannah, Georgia, but we also have a campus in Midtown Atlanta, and we are so excited to connect with you guys today. So I'm going to kick off this presentation and talk to you about deciding on what colleges to visit. Clearly, we are living in very unprecedented times, and it may be a little difficult to decide what colleges you're going to visit, when you're going to visit, can you visit, how should you visit. So we had a few factors that we wanted to make sure to share with you guys when you and your family and you and your guidance counselors or college counselors are sitting down to make your visit list. First and foremost, geographic location is a huge factor right now, more so than ever before, since we are living in the midst of a pandemic. You have to be cognizant of geographic location and travel. I would definitely take advantage if you are in the Georgia or Atlanta area. You have quite a wealth of schools right here at your fingertips available to you. So you may be staying closer to home, but that doesn't mean that you can't go and visit schools. Also, if a school isn't open for a physical tour, we are starting to reopen back up as a country. So maybe you come and visit the city so you can get a really good feel of what it's like to be part of that community. School identity is going to play a big factor for you guys. What type of school are you looking for? Are you looking for a specialty school like mine? Are you looking for a small private institution, a large public, a liberal arts, a research institution? The more you can start thinking and asking yourself these questions, this will really help you frame what schools you should actually go and visit and explore. Same thing with type of institution. I do want to circle back to identity too. This could also include size or the actual identity of this school. Is this an urban? Is this a more metropolitan demographic? Is there a large international population, out-of-state population? Is this a more regional school? So all of these questions can really help you in terms of deciding when and where you go to visit. And then of course, financial fit. This is going to be a topic that comes up throughout the week in a lot of our various panels that you guys are probably logging into. But this is a conversation you cannot start early enough. You want to make sure that when you are making a list of colleges to go and visit, that it's a school that you will financially fit into. So having that conversation with your family, making sure that it's a good fit for you guys. These are all some of the factors that we want you to consider when you're really just sitting down and starting to make that short list. All right, so there are tons of different types of college visits for you all to choose from, especially since we are living in a pandemic. The most common right now is virtual tours. It's literally what we are doing right now. It could be a Zoom with an admission counselor. There are a lot of colleges and universities that have built-in virtual tours where you can click through campus and maybe you have a virtual tour guide to walk you through various buildings and spots throughout the campus. But virtual tours, very, very popular right now. I will tell you too, from what we've been able to see, virtual tours have really been enhanced by colleges and universities in the past 12 months. So it's always been a tool, but it has never been such a strong tool than it is right now. On-campus tours, again, these are going to look different from school to school. I know even just me and my colleagues on this call, all of our campuses are doing something a little bit different to host students on campus. And I think as you guys start making your list, you really have to ask each school in particular how they're handling on-campus visits. Some institutions are only allowing accepted students, so students really in the midst of that decision process to come and explore. My institution, we're open to all students who are interested in coming to visit. So it really just depends school by school what their policies are. Also keep in mind, due to COVID and safety protocols, no one can host massive tours the way we used to. So I would definitely encourage you guys to plan ahead because a lot of us are having to restrict our tour numbers if we are hosting visitors on campus. In addition to on-campus tours, you may have an option to do a self-guided tour. This may be a virtual or physical map and directions of points of interest where you're really kind of on your own to explore these campus communities. So that has been a very popular option, especially in the past couple of months as we're starting to reopen. Now, looking toward the near and distant future, open house events, I know all of us in higher ed can't wait to get back to these. These are going to look, again, very different from institution to institution, but these are typically events for you to pull back the curtain and have a one-stop shop to that institution. So these are going to include possible workshops, tours, maybe these are highlighting specific schools within the institution. These are going to be more in-depth events for you and your families to come and really explore a campus environment. Also, as you guys look forward to your senior year and getting accepted to all of these amazing schools, we all do admitted student events. This is a great time to come to visit campus. I know for us on this call, a lot of us are doing virtual admitted student events. These are so helpful in the decision-making process because it really allows you to make that final connection to campus, but to also to connect with other students who are in the same boat as you. Maybe you find your roommate, maybe you find a study partner, maybe you find your best friend. These are really, really fun events that I know can really help in the decision-making process. And then just keep in mind, visits don't always mean coming to a physical location. A lot of us come to you guys. So I know that the majority of you guys are logging on from the Atlanta or the Georgia area, but hopefully we have some out-of-state students and families on this presentation. A lot of us do regional information sessions. So we may come to a city near you. And then keep in mind, come and give us a test run. A lot of our institutions offer summer programs or pre-college opportunities, whether it's dual enrollment, where you can earn college credit, or participate in week-long, 2-week-long workshops where you can get to know faculty and the campus community. So there are a wide variety of different types of college visits, and we just want to make sure that you utilize all of them as you go through the college search process.
All right, thanks, Alex. So preparing for a virtual visit, you all are pros at virtual everything probably at this point between school and other things that you're doing. But just some things to keep in mind when you're planning for a virtual visit. We see in-person families of students coming to visit. We see parents, we see grandparents, we see legal guardians, aunts, uncles, all these different types of people. And what we've really seen through this pandemic is individual students without their families. So when you're thinking about a visit, think about coordinating that with your family, whatever that looks like to you, or a group of friends, or a friend's parent who's involved in your process. So think about other folks in your process in thinking about schools so that everybody can be part of that conversation. Find a quiet place, which I'm about to break this rule in about 3.5 seconds because my dog is about to bark at my family coming home. So perfect example of what not to do. But finding a quiet place, whether you are at school or you are at home, and sometimes that can be a little bit difficult with everybody being virtual in the household or at your school, but try and find that quiet place. I'll show you why that's important here in a second. See, make sure your device is charged, whether that's your phone, your tablet, your computer. It's so easy to just like pop open something really quick and then realize that you have like 10% battery left. So making sure things are charged and bring questions. That was something that when we were in person, we never had to even think about folks asking questions because people love to raise their hand and just come out with all kinds of questions, which we love in admission because then we can really tailor to what you're interested in. If you're an in-state student, we don't need to talk about out-of-student costs, right? So bring your questions, and when we ask for questions, when your tour guides ask for questions, really ask them. We want to hear from you, and we want to know what that looks like. On the flip side, when you're preparing for an on-campus visit, check the time zones. So my parents, really fast story, just moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee. At first, I actually thought it was on a different time zone than myself in Atlanta. It's not. However, about 10 miles down the road is a different time zone. So check and make sure wherever you're going that you check the time zone, and that if it's Eastern and you're on Eastern or whatever it is, so just check those time zones. Know where to go on campus. On our campus, for example, we're located in the Billmore Student Success Center, but there is also a student center on campus. So make sure that you know where you're going, check those directions. We give lots of directions in our confirmation emails. I know my colleagues on the call all give lots of directions. And with that, knowing where to park. If you did park at the student center at the end of your day, make sure that's kind of where you end back up and not at the Billmore Student Success Center, which is in a different part of campus. Being on time, we know that life happens, right? And we kind of give that little barrier because we are all human, and we do that in our virtual settings in the same way that we do it in person, but being on time as much as possible is really important. And organize your questions. Alex was talking about how on campus can kind of look different for every school, and so knowing who to ask your questions to. There's some schools, when you sign up to do an information session and a tour, you automatically get an information session in your major, and there are other schools who don't. So making sure that you are asking the experts in whoever that platform is, whether it's the academic folks and asking those questions, the admission folks and asking those questions. Sometimes you get fun answers. Sometimes you go to a website. So just kind of organizing those questions so that you can get the most out of your visit.
All right, thanks, Katie Beth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about self-guided tours. As we kind of alluded to in the beginning, of course, things have changed and developed so much in the last 12 months, and I think all of my colleagues on this meeting will agree that our self-guided tour options are continuing to develop day to day, but it's always a great option to use a self-guided visit when you are really interested in seeing the campus firsthand, but maybe your schools that you're interested in are not offering in-person guided tours yet, or you just want to come at a time when tours are not being offered. So if you're in town on a weekend and you want to learn more about the school, or on a day where tours are not available, a self-guided visit is a really great option for you. You'll find out, depending on the school, some schools may give you a printed out map with kind of a route, and other schools will have an app or something that's kind of web-based for you to use your phone while walking around campus. But either way, you'll want to be prepared. So plan ahead when you want to do a self-guided tour. Get your directions to campus, know where you're going to park. Oftentimes for a self-guided tour, they won't necessarily offer you a specific place to park on campus. It'll be kind of on you to find a place on campus to park. So do your research ahead of time. Make sure you have your phone and any other information that you may need for the tour. So if it's that printed out map or anything else, make sure to have it when you get on campus. Be sure to take pictures when you're out walking around and take notes. You think you're going to remember things, but then you get home and it's really hard to kind of look back and process everything that you saw. So definitely take pictures as you can, walk around and picture yourself there. And explore your surroundings, depending on the type of campuses that you visit. If it's, a more traditional campus, you want to think about kind of outside of the gates, right? And what you can bring to that community. And if you're walking around more of a city campus, you want to make sure that you're comfortable in that environment as well. Don't overschedule your self-guided visits. It's really easy to say, oh, there are 3 schools within, 5 miles in Atlanta. I can totally do all 3 of those in one day. We promise you can't. And it's just too overwhelming when you look back. Yeah, everyone is in agreement on that one. Take your time, spread yourself out so that you can really absorb the information and absorb the experience of a self-guided visit. And work with your admissions office at those schools. So let someone know that you're coming to campus. If you find a self-guided tour map online, for example, it's great. Go ahead and print it out and get to campus. But I always recommend reaching out to the admissions office or welcome center office to let someone know, because they may be able to provide you with additional information. They may be able to provide you with some perks or giveaways when you get to campus. You never know what a school may be able to offer you. So definitely reach out to someone to let them know you're coming. And finally, prioritize buildings based on your interests. So if you have a specific major in mind or a specific group that you're interested in learning about when you're on campus, try to do that research ahead of time for a self-guided tour so that you can know which buildings you definitely want to check out and which buildings you may not necessarily need to walk to if they don't fit your intended major. Thank you. And then finally, I just want to talk about kind of, in thinking about any type of visit, just some things to look for and consider when you're on campus and when you go home to reflect and think about kind of how that school may fit into your needs. Visualize yourself as part of the community, right? We talk about fit when we're trying to help students guide students through what type of university they want to attend, but it's a really important piece of that visit experience to think about how you can fit into that community and how that community will offer you what you want. Will you be happy there? Will you be comfortable there? Will they push you outside of your comfort zone and challenge you like a good university should? And the environmental fit too, right? You may know today that you definitely want to go to a school in a large urban city, and you may not. But when you start exploring campuses, you're going to realize pretty quickly what feels right to you. So trust that and let that kind of help guide you. Depending on the type of tour you take and when you do that, you may or may not be able to connect with current students during your visit. So try to kind of get the lowdown on the school in other ways. So if there are newspapers on campus, grab some of those, listen to the campus radio station, try to figure out kind of the different types of resources and student life aspects, whether or not you're actually meeting with students on campus. And finally, the two things that I would say are really important, no matter what type of institution and what type of tour you're looking at, think about two things. How is the campus going to keep you safe as a student? And what kind of resources are they offering to you for support and success during your time at the university? Those are definitely, I think in our opinions, probably two of the most important things when thinking about kind of where you are and your decision-making process.
Awesome. So I want to dig in a little deeper to something we've already gotten a couple of questions about, and also something that we've talked about a lot throughout this presentation. The dreaded, do you have any questions? You will be asked this multiple times through any visit that you have on any campus, virtual or in person. And it seems like when that question gets asked, every question you may possibly have disappears from your head. If you're like me, maybe that means you need a list. But it really helps if you start thinking about these things in advance. Even if you're just sort of doing an exploratory visit, you don't know a ton about the college, but you are really interested, it's good to sort of start thinking about the things that are important to you. So one student in the Q&A box asked, are there questions we should always ask? I would say not necessarily. There's not something that I would say every single student should ask, but there are going to be questions that you personally should always ask based on your interests and what you want out of your college experience. So one thing to keep in mind, we already mentioned that there's a lot of different types of visits. And because of that, there are going to be a lot of different people that you may be interacting with. Depending on the type of visit, you may be talking to, you will likely be talking to admission people. So an admission counselor, admission representative. You might be talking with current students. There are chances that you may be talking with other staff. So like athletics coaches, student life staff, that sort of thing. And you may be talking to professors if you have a chance to sit in on a class, or if a professor is doing a panel or part of the presentation. There might be a lot of different people that you're talking to. And it's entirely possible that you're going to ask the same question to all of those people, just in different ways, because you're going to get different perspectives from everyone you ask. What I want to encourage you is to dig a little deeper for your questions. The hardest question for any admissions person to answer is, do you have a biology major? Because the answer is yes, we have a biology major, most people do, but we don't know exactly what you want out of that question. Do you want to know how many people are in our biology major? Do you want to know what research do biology majors do? Dig in a little more to the things that you're interested in. So think about your major and ask instead things like, In my major, if I'm an English major, what do my class sizes look like in my first year versus my senior year? Ask what are the outcomes for the student in that major? What's their graduation rate? What do they do after they graduate? What internships are available that students have done in the past? What study abroad is available? What research opportunities are available? I'm using the example of majors because that's usually a thing that people ask a lot of questions about, but this can be brought out to anything that you're interested in. Don't just ask about, so how good's the lacrosse team? Dig into that a little bit more. How many people are on the lacrosse team? How hard is it to be a recruited athlete? If I don't want to be a recruited athlete, what other options are there for me to play lacrosse? So dig into your questions a little bit more, and you're going to get a lot more out of the experience. If you have the chance to talk to a current student, this is the best possible option. If it's optional, always say yes to talking to a current student. Admissions people, professors, we can talk to you all day long, but we are not having the student experience right now. So talk to the student, ask them about their experience. Again, this is going to be very personal to what you're interested in. So maybe you want to know what diversity looks like on campus, but maybe that's more personal, as in I'm a member of the LGBT plus community. What does it look like for a student like me on your campus? I'm BIPOC. What does it look like for a student like me on your campus? Ask them questions about who they are. What do you do in a normal day? College is very different than high school. And so figuring out what it actually looks like to be a student at that institution can be really helpful. What organizations are you a part of? Often schools have too many organizations to list. You're looking at a list of 300 organizations. Obviously, you're not going to be a part of all of them. But when that person tells you they're part of the RPG club, you can have a conversation about what does that mean? How did you get interested in that sort of thing? Ask them what the best part of being a student there is, and ask them what the worst part of being a student there is. There is a worst part to every experience. For me, the worst part of my college experience was parking. 100% of the time, that was my answer. So there's always a worst part, and you might as well know it up front. And then make sure that you ask those important questions for you, for your family, admissions and financial aid related. While you have an admissions person in front of you, ask them those things that are important. Is your institution test optional? What does that mean? Because every test optional is different. What do I have to do instead of test scores? Am I at a disadvantage if I don't send in test scores? Ask all of those things. What are you looking for when you're reading applications? What's the number one thing you're looking for? What does a financial aid package typically look like for a student from in-state, for a student from out of state? How can I estimate what my financial aid package might be? Spoiler alert, the answer is the net price calculator. We all have one, but we can tell you where it is. So ask those important questions because you're going to come out of the conversation with a lot more if you already have those in advance. If I can actually get to the part where I move on. And then finally, after the visit. So I always say there are sort of 3 parts of the after the visit. As soon as you get off of the call, as soon as you get into the car after walking around or being on a tour, go ahead and have a quick debrief with whoever you're with, even if it's just with yourself. Jot down some notes. And I want these notes to be very much based on either important things that you learned, like, oh my gosh, I cannot forget that if I want this scholarship, I need to apply by this day. If I want to be a recruited athlete, I need to do this thing. Write those important things down, and then write down your gut thoughts and feelings before they go away. I feel really comfortable on this campus. I'm really worried about safety because of X thing. I don't know if I connected with that student, but I don't know if that's part of the campus or just that student. Write down those gut thoughts and feelings before they go away. Later, you can start making more notes about the important points, deadlines, opportunities, interests, that sort of thing. You can do this however makes the most sense to you, whether that's a quick little note in your phone, whatever it is. To me, I am a very big list maker. So when I was visiting colleges, I had tons of pro-con lists where I just listed everything down from visits, whatever makes the most sense for you. Go ahead and think too, because I'm one of those people who, as soon as I push the end call button, I remember all of my questions. If that happens to you, go ahead and write those questions down. You can send those out to an admissions counselor. You can ask them if you have another opportunity to visit, any of those sorts of things. Go ahead and note those questions down. And then in follow-up, reach out to people. If you didn't have a chance to meet with your specific admission counselor, reach out to them. A lot of times you're going to meet with, an admissions person who's in charge for the day or something like that. Maybe not the person who's working specifically with you in your high school. Reach out to them, let them know that you visited campus, let them know what follow-up questions you have and where you are in the process. If you had a really special experience, like if you really connected with a student tour guide, if a professor went out of their way to do a meeting with you, a thank you never goes awry. People love those. I have student tour guides who keep every single thank you note and email they've ever received. And it's their favorite thing about being a tour guide. So if you have a really great experience, I think that can be a great way to show gratitude and to show that you're interested. So think about doing those thank you notes, because I think that's really helpful. You do not have to thank me. It is my job to do this, but I think especially with students, it can be a great opportunity. All right, we have talked for 30 minutes, which is a lot. So now we're going to ask that question. So do you have any questions? You can drop them in the Q&A box and we'll start answering them. I know we already have some, so I'll just go ahead and start throwing them out there. One student asked us, how early should you start touring colleges? They're a sophomore and they're thinking about touring colleges this summer. I don't know about anybody else's opinions. I say go ahead, start now. You may not have as in-depth of questions now. You may not know exactly what you want, but it can help you figure it out. It can help you whittle your list down if you visit a very small institution and a very large institution and a medium-sized institution and figure out where you feel most comfortable. There's something like over 4,000 higher educational institutions in the country. You have to have some limiting factors. So visiting a couple of schools that are close by to you can help you sort of start putting those limits on. Anybody want to add anything to that?
I would just say if you are planning to start visits in the near future, even through the summer, just be aware of all of the safety protocols that schools have in place right now. We really are, if we are hosting on-campus visits for prospective students and their families, we're trying to limit the number of visitors who are coming through our doors each day. And it's not that we don't want to host you, it's just that we have to keep everyone safe. So plan ahead. Pre-COVID, we would accept walk-ins and you could just kind of come and go as you pleased through the admission department in most of our schools. And that's just simply not the world that we're living in right now. So do have a tour confirmation and register early because tour times do fill up.
Yes, and try to follow the rules that are given. If a college asks for you to wear a mask, please do that. If there's something that's stopping you from possible. So we have a question about if you are undecided on a major, what specific question? Very good question. Anybody want to take that one?
I can start it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we'll probably have pretty similar advice, but I'd say two things. First, I know a lot of our schools have some options on our websites where you can actually do some kind of assessment tests and try to pinpoint some majors that may be good fits for you. So I would definitely recommend kind of starting to think about that, play around with that. I've done it just for fun, like to see where, if I were to do it all over again, if my major would be the same. And then once you do get on campus for a visit, I would say definitely if you can talk to some current students and learn from them how they picked their major, what was their process, and what they can expect to get from that institution in terms of kind of support for whatever they decide to do academically. And I know, you know, on our campus, all of my tour guides have really great stories about how they chose their majors, the thought process that went into it, how they changed their majors several times and why, and kind of how our academic advisement offices help them through that process. So you'll see once you start talking to students, you're not alone just because you're an undecided major. Everyone kind of goes through that. Not everyone is born and knows that they're going to be a bio major and then go to med school. Most of us are unsure, and that's okay. We are prepared to kind of help guide you through that process. So just make it known and you'll find that support.
I was going to also add that at that point, if you're not sure about your major, it's more about feel. And Rachel's suggestion about going to a big institution and a small institution, I think that can kind of start narrowing your focus. If you're interested in being in a big city like Atlanta, or I was at a small town in South Georgia before I came to Georgia Tech. And maybe that's more of the kind of college feel that you're looking for. So you kind of base it on feel, which is a little harder to describe. But I think that's kind of a good place to start. And then as you do start to narrow it down to, maybe I want to be something based in sciences. Maybe you don't know exactly what science, but I really like science and I really like math, or I really like art, or whatever that is for you. I'm really interested in sports. Thinking those kind of like bigger picture lines, and then the feel piece, and then you can start kind of putting those things together in the end to say, oh, I do want a small school in sports. So we'll just use that example.
Yeah, and the questions that I gave of digging deeper into the major, you can ask those same questions, just ask them of all majors. What is the average class size for all majors? What are the general outcomes for students who go to this school? You're going to have a major at some point, maybe more than one, if you're going to be one of those double majors or something like that. So just give yourself a chance to learn about the entire school, and then you can figure out the major piece along the way. And don't worry about it. A lot of people change their major, even if they think they're 100% sure. So you are not alone in being undecided. So the next question is about, so we talked a lot about financial fit and making sure that the college is a good financial fit for you and your family. This person wants to know, in general, how does one qualify for financial aid? And I'm just gonna broaden that a little bit to, how do you figure out if a school is a good financial fit for you, on the front end and on sort of while you're in the decision process? Alex, do you want to take this one? Just spreading out the wealth of questions.
Absolutely. So determining whether a school is a good financial fit is really going to be a very individualized process between you and your family. I think that there are so many great resources out there, from school websites and us, the admission teams and enrollment teams at the universities and colleges that you're considering, but also your college counselors and Google. I mean, I spend a lot of time Googling. In terms of applying for aid, most of us will use the FAFSA information, or the information that we gain from FAFSA. So even if you feel like you may not qualify for federal aid, or much federal aid, maybe if you're interested in going to school loan-free, trying to minimize your debt, a lot of us use information gained from the FAFSA to support you. So that information is really valuable for us on the back end, to invest in you as students. Scholarships are a completely different beast. And again, very individual from institution to institution. What you will see though, as general as possible, you will definitely want to ask about academic scholarships. Again, GPA requirements will vary. Typically a 3.0 or higher. you will be considered for merit or academic scholarships. Keep in mind, the higher your GPA, the higher your academic scholarships. Most schools have leadership or achievement-based scholarships that you may need to apply for. Maybe you need to submit a resume or letters of recommendation. If you come to a specialty school like SCAD, we'll ask for a portfolio. So institutional-based aid will differ from school to school, and these make great conversations during campus tours, whether they're virtual or in person, because establishing what is best and what's right for you and your family as soon as possible will really help make everyone's life a lot easier in the long run.
Yeah. And also with scholarships, if you ask an admissions representative, they may be able to help you narrow down if there are scholarships that require specific applications, which ones you're a better fit for, so you're not wasting your time on scholarships that you're not a good fit for. So always ask. Our next question, I believe they're asking about the Georgia state system. Will public Georgia colleges in the Georgia state system be allowing test optional for the graduating class of 2022? I don't know if that decision has been made yet.
No, it has not been made yet for 2022, unfortunately.
Okay, so just to give you a little background, that decision is not made by the individual institutions. That decision is made by the state of Georgia educational system in general. So as soon as schools know that information, you will know. Private colleges, they're going to work differently. So if you're looking at private colleges like Agnes Scott, our test optional works differently than Georgia Tech's test optional. But I can promise we will be test optional for the class of 2022 because we've been test optional for over 10 years. So it's going to be different for every institution.
Yeah, SCAD is also a private institution. We pre-pandemic were requiring standardized test scores. We waived them for fall 2020, and we have waived them through fall 2022. So y'all are good to go for any juniors or seniors who are still making their college decisions.
And Georgia, I was just gonna say Georgia State and Georgia Tech will let you know as soon as they know.
Yeah, exactly. So we've only been able to waive it through fall 2021. So any seniors on this call are good to go, but we are still waiting on decisions for 2022 and beyond.
All right, awesome. Wants to ask, is it better to go on visits with the rest of your class, so like a large group tour to try to get more perspectives and questions, or to go on your own to focus on your questions and needs? They're both different experiences, and you're probably going to get different things out of both. So if you're able to do both, why not? I work for a small school, and so generally I'm a big fan of one-on-one interactions. But that is not what everyone wants. If you're more of an introvert and the idea of speaking up one-on-one, having that kind of conversation just leaves you mortified, maybe a group tour is a better fit for you. It's really going to depend a little bit on you and what you're interested in.
I would also say, depending on your resources, you may be able to go somewhere with your school that you maybe can't get to with a family member. So take advantage of those group tours if your school is offering them. Oftentimes, you'll get to explore the campus with your friends. You may or may not get to have lunch on campus. Like, it's a great opportunity to take advantage of if your school is offering it.
Yeah, and to echo what Sonia said, a lot of times when we have, in particular, like high school or school groups on campus, we typically try to pull out all of the stops. So you may have access to, different university resources or opportunities that you may not get to see if you come on a daily tour. So definitely take advantage of any kind of college visits you have access to, whether they're in a group setting or independently. Highly encouraged.
So unfortunately, we couldn't get to all of the questions. However, I have put a page with all of our contact information up on the screen. Please go ahead and take a screenshot of that. If you have specific questions for an institution, or if you have general questions about best times to visit or anything like that, feel free to shoot any of us an email. We are happy to answer those questions. That is what we do. So thank you all for joining us, and I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Excellent. Thank you all. What a great presentation. I want to say thank you for joining us. And when you close this window, there will be a quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate your feedback. Just a reminder, there are more sessions happening as part of this college fair, so please do sign up for those. And in about a week, you'll be able to find the recording from this session and others at strivescan.com/Atlanta. Thank you all and have a great rest of your day.